In this video, we're going to take a look at how to model the Lifesaver candy from Activity 134 CAD Modeling Skills. So in this part, we're going to go ahead and start with a new component, and we're just going to call this the Lifesaver. And I'm going to create a new sketch, and I'm going to choose the front work plane to be able to make that happen. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with creating a center rectangle. And when I do so, I'm going to try to place it somewhere over here to the right. I'm not going to place it on the origin. I'm actually going to place it over here to the right of it just a little bit. We're going to be creating a revolve later, so that's why we're going to do that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and grab the horizontal vertical constraint. I'm going to click on the origin, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on the center point. So then that way that they'll be lined up horizontally. And then I can go ahead and start applying some dimensions. So the width of my rectangle, 0.335. The height of it is going to be 0.2. And then to set up the middle for the hole, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to dimension from the origin to the edge, the left edge of the rectangle. And this is going to be a 0.125 hole size. So, or half of it. So then, once I go through, I'm going to get another distinctive shape, and I'm going to go down to create an ellipse. And what I'm going to do is the center point is going to go on the center of the rectangle. I'm going to draw out horizontally for the major axis of the ellipse, and I'm going to go out till I see the blue X and it hits on the midpoint. So I'm going to click, and then I'm going to move my mouse cursor up, and I'm going to overshoot the top of the rectangle. So what I'm going to look at is I'm going to go ahead and take a dimension from the top edge of the ellipse, which has a line there, and to the center. I want to make that to have a 0.15 measurement. Now this will still stay blue because if I click and drag horizontally, this can still move. So what I'm going to do to fix that is I'm going to take a coincident constraint, grab the little white dot that shows up at the end of the ellipse, and then I'm going to choose the edge of the rectangle so that way it'll be fully constrained. I'm going to go ahead and finish the sketch and put it in the home position, and I'm going to go ahead and choose the revolve command, and I'm going to select all the pieces of my profile. So I need everything that's here, should be 7 total. When I select them all, they should highlight in blue. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit select to choose the axis, and I'm going to choose the blue axis here to revolve around to create the overall shape of our Lifesaver. And I'm going to go ahead and say OK. From here, I'm going to take a offset work plane, so go up here to the construct panel, offset plane. I'm going to choose the flat edge up here on the top, and I'm going to go ahead and offset that by 0.1. And I'll hit enter. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a sketch on this work plane. And from here, we're going to set up the text that shows up on the front of the Lifesaver. So I'm going to draw a circle. The diameter of this circle will be 0.45. And I'm going to take a couple lines to help me set up for the text. One is I'm going to take a vertical line right along the y-axis to go through and place there, and I'm going to say OK. Now I'm going to select this line, and I'm going to toggle this over in the sketch palette to be a construction line. So this is going to be something we're just going to use to help us out. I'm going to choose the line tool again, and I'm going to take 2 lines, drawing out from the origin at a certain angle. And then I can go ahead and constrain them. So I'm going to sketch dimension, choose the angled line, I'm going to choose my construction line, and I'm going to make this 50 degrees. Choose the other line, choose the center line. I'm going to go out above here a little bit, and this is going to be 75 degrees. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, but I'm going to use, under the Create panel, I'm going to choose Mirror, and I'm going to choose what things I want to mirror. So I'm going to grab the 2 angled lines, and then I'm going to choose Mirror Line, select, and then I'm going to choose that construction line, and it's going to go through and throw 2 mirrored lines on the other side. And I can go ahead and say OK. Now what I'll do next to set up for my text is I'm going to grab the trim tool, and the little segment of the circle that is right here that's between the 2 lines, I'm going to trim those 2 pieces away. So that way I get 2 arcs. I get 1 arc down here on the bottom that runs from this shape, you can kind of see it highlighted, and then I get another arc here that runs between these 2 lines. And just to constrain that arc, I'm going to throw a dimension on there just by selecting it. Should be 0.225 on the radius, and I'm just going to hit enter, and that'll constrain the arc. Now I can go to create, and I can choose text, it asks for either you can choose text or text on a path. So I'll choose that option, and I got to select what path. So the top one, I'm going to choose the top arc, and I'm going to type in, this is going to be have the word life in it in all capital letters. I've got Arial, bold, and a height of 0.16. And this here, it says for the placement I can do above the path or below it. I want to choose above the path. And when I do that, I'm going to uncheck fit to path. And then I can go ahead and choose either if it's left aligned, I can choose it to be centered, which is what we want, because the edge of this arc should be roughly where the L should be starting. And I'm just going to go ahead and say OK. I'm going to repeat the same process for the bottom portion, selecting the bottom arc, putting in the word savers, and then going ahead and making sure all the same text options are there, except for this time I'm going to say text is below the path, and I'm going to make it fit. So I'm going to check that box, and then that way it kind of shows up and you see it stays within the length of that path. And I'm going to go ahead and say OK. Finish the sketch, put it in the home position. I'm going to extrude. I'm going to select both text profiles, and instead I'm going to make it come down until it goes through and touches. But what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to say under the extent type, I'm going to say to object, and then I'm going to select this rounded portion on the top, which is where all the text is going to be. And what will happen is it will form fit and create the text as you see it. And when I say OK, that'll be our profile. So there's going to be our text that we get from it. All right, last portion here is you can tell the lettering kind of sticks up kind of high and everything, and the letters are typically kind of rounded over. And we're going to create our geometry to kind of make that happen. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the Create Sketch button. I'm going to choose the front work plane. If I zoom out, I can kind of see it a little bit more. I'm going to choose this front work plane, and then I can zoom in on my shape. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to use, from the sketch palette, I'm going to check Slice, which is going to cut that right in half, and then I can see kind of the inside. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Create, and I'm going to go down to Project / Include, choose the Project option. The only thing I really need to grab is if I select down here at the bottom part of this arc, and I can go ahead and say OK. So then it gives me a center point to snap to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another ellipse, much like I did in the first sketch. Using this center point, I'm going to draw out until I hit the edge of the rectangle, and then I'm going to draw until I go through and I get to the outside edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this corner. I'll see a blue box right there next to my mouse cursor as I do that, and I'm going to click when I get that box. Then I'm going to go ahead and go to the Offset tool, and I'm going to choose that ellipse, and I can grab the little slider and everything there, or I can type in a number, which I'm going to put 0.01 for the offset, and I'm going to hit Enter. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a new line from the origin, and I'm going to go ahead and toggle this to be a construction line. So if I select the line, if I press the X key on the keyboard, it'll automatically toggle and you'll see it all highlight there. So that's the keyboard shortcut. I'm going to draw a rectangle, and the rectangle is going to be wind up on this top line right here, right in line with your rectangular shape from before, and I'm going to kind of start and kind of go from here. So as I draw that, I can go ahead and now, if I click Sketch Dimension, select the construction line, select the left edge of the rectangle. It is going to be a 0.05 measurement. The height of, or the width of this, I should say, is going to be 0.5 even, and the height of this is going to be 0.2 even. And what we're going to have here is I'm going to use my trim tool, and I'm going to trim away this line that's like right in between this arc a little bit, and that's going to go through and kind of help create kind of like a profile that I can go through and have. So I'm going to go ahead and finish the sketch. When I do that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit Revolve, and when I choose it, I'm going to get this shape. So when I click on it, you can see the blue that it only picks up. It kind of has this little kind of arch block shape as we create it. And then for the axis, I can go ahead and I can choose my construction line, and when I do that, it's going to create it's going to automatically set the cut, and it's going to cut away and round off our letters by revolving that shape around and doing that particular case. And I'm going to go ahead and say OK. And now this finishes out our Lifesaver model. Probably want to go to the appearance, and I'm going to grab just a color. I like green, so I'll grab green and throw that on there, and that will finish up our Lifesaver model for activity 134 CAD modeling skills.